Welcome, everybody, to Write Better Together. I'm John Myers. This is Write Better Together, Afterthoughts, Afterthought. We joked about doing this. We're actually doing it. In a previous Afterthought, we talked about one of my log lines. In this one, we're going to talk about one of Emily's log lines. Hey, look, everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hi, John Myers.
Hi. And so now Emily will read us one of her log lines from the past. Will we see shades of the Korean dramas in this log line?
No, but I have a feeling that they will show up in my future stories. This is actually the book that this is my work in progress. This is the one that I'm 7 revisions into, and I'm pitching it in like next week or in 2 weeks. And so, if you have any feedback, I would love to hear, because I'm having a really hard time condensing it into one sentence. So, this is a draft. Are you ready? Okay, I'm not ready.
I'm ready.
The Last Divers of Omera is a YA fantasy about a boy with depression who must learn to fight for his own survival when he leaves his island to save his people from starvation.
Oh. Read it again.
Okay. The Last Divers of Omera is a YA fantasy about a boy with depression who must learn to fight for his own survival when he leaves his island to save his people from starvation.
Okay. And what would you like to say about it?
There's so much more to the story. For one thing, it's a dual POV. So it's not just about the boy with depression. There's also a female protagonist. There is romance. I want to talk about the whole thing of like why their island is struggling with starvation and why he has to leave. But again, like condensing it down. And then like I decided to put in the line, he must learn to fight for his own survival, because I wanted to show like where his character arc is going to be. But I don't know if like do log lines have to have a character arc. So yeah, I'm
So is there so there are two protagonists. It's a dual
yeah.
protagonist.
Yes,
And
please.
so there's different kinds of dual protagonists, and we would have never known that from your log line that it's a dual protagonist story. And so I will recommend, I think it's this book that I just pulled off the bookshelf. Yeah. So Lucy V. Hay has written. So speaking of 10-year anniversaries, so this is wild. So she rewrote this year, and so just like my log line that's 10 years old, her first version of this book. So we'll put it in our bookshop, but if you order on Amazon, make sure you don't get the 2014 version, because there's a 2023 version, and you
Gotcha.
want the new updated one because it has streaming examples and stuff that didn't exist 10 years ago. And but in it, she has the best breakdown I've ever read of different types of dual protagonist relationships. Um, and uh, and so my only advice is, in the log line, depending on what that relationship is between the two protagonists, that's how you're gonna have to say it in the log line. It's
So
gonna be
like
like if it was a buddy comedy. First of all,
right.
those aren't usually dual protagonists, because sometimes the buddy is the obstacle, and but people will use that as an example of dual protagonists. But it's whether they're co-protagonists, where they work together for the same goal, or they're separate, and they have two separate goals that character A can't attain his goal without character B obtaining her goal. Like they both have to obtain their goals for the other goal to work. Those are two different scenarios.
Yeah, they both are on the journey to save their people from starvation. It's more their character arcs that are different. And so because I included the main male character's arc, it just would be clunky to add hers, I feel like. Also, I think the male character is slightly more of a protagonist than she is, but only slightly. So,
But you can start that with are they related to each other? Do they know
No,
each other?
they're friends.
Okay. Um,
They're
because I write
partners.
ensembles, so I have to deal with this all the time.
Yeah.
Where the where the beginning of the log line is uh, uh, a dozen unrelated scientists go on a blah blah blah, right? And so,
Yeah.
but with two or three protagonists, you can say a trio of or a duo of competing worldviews, blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
and so it just depends on what their relationship is, which is why I recommended Lucy's book.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
that happens in an ensemble where there's like a core four, or the main. I don't have a word for the main six, where there's people that are more involved, but in an ensemble, everyone has to push the plot forward,
Yeah.
and so um, there still can be, like how you said, the male figure is a little bit more of a protagonist than the than the secondary protagonist. There's no such thing as that, but I get what you mean by that. Was is my point. I think they're
Yeah,
the
and if it's a romance, like it because some romances are single protagonist, but some of them it's like equal. You're getting just as much from both POVs.
because you see it from both
So,
points of view,
right.
and you can do, but you can also do that in your long line, despite their opposing worldviews. A
Yeah.
young fancy sailor and a whatever
Yeah.
an old grumpy mermaid come together to save their
Have
people.
you read my book?
No, but I mean that's but that I'm just saying that's how you do it,
Yeah.
despite their opposing worldviews, or despite their different childhood traumas, or despite their blah blah blah. The two come, blah, an A and a B come together to save their world from extinction or whatever their thing is. That's how you do that.
I like
Um,
that.
because it's a different story. You just pitched a different story than if it's just a guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so I agree. I think that having both is important.
Are
Okay.
there what? And so then my next question was, what are their obstacles?
Their obstacles to saving their people from starvation?
Yeah, like
I mean, it's kind of it's a race against time, like end of the sea. They're journeying across the sea, but the actual destination is a very dangerous destination.
so the obstacles are environmental obstacles.
Yeah, it's definitely a man versus nature, human versus nature story.
So that that needs to be in there too. So I know that it's not Tyson Chicken, no offense to Tyson Chicken, trying to starve this nation, right? That's a different story than if it's a drought that already has existed before the movie started, or if a typhoon is coming and wipes out the crops for 7 years. So those are all different obstacles.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I actually was very intentional with that because a lot of fantasy stories are like man versus society, um, and I wanted to do something different. So that was
The
really helpful. Thank you.
That's what I'm here for. The reason that we're going into this is to help the listeners and the
Yeah,
viewers at home, and
yeah.
is and so the famine, is it a famine, or have I just decided it was a famine? The starvation, we'll say that
It's kind of a famine of
the
sorts.
starvation is happening despite these two people that are coming to reverse the starvation, right?
Right.
They weren't implicit in the causing of the starvation.
Well,
or, or were
they
they?
they were a little bit
Oh,
unintentionally. Yeah,
that's better.
but not antagonistically.
But that's better though. So if they're related um to the conflict, then that's
So this
better.
the
Good job.
starvation that they inadvertently caused.
Ah, that I mean that makes the log line stronger too. What's your goal of the log line? Is that someone wants it, right? Someone
Yeah.
wants your story.
Yeah, you're right. That is an interesting part of my story that I just kind of brushed over.
Well, that's because we live with our stories for a year or 5 years, and so people. I'll tell you a story when we're done with this episode, but people forget what they're assuming is on the page, which in your
Yeah,
case it's on the
that's
page
so
in the
true.
novel, but it's not in the log line. And
Yep.
because you already know that about the characters, or you already know that about
Right.
the scenario. But
Right.
I never heard this before, so I don't know.
All right.
All
Yeah.
right. Now what do we say?
We did it without you. I'm just kidding.
Afterthoughts are when we do it without you people. No, we did it for them.
We did. We did it for you.
Thanks. Thanks everybody. We couldn't have done it without you.
Couldn't have done it without you.